Hello, everyone. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for hanging around. I know it's the very end here, but hopefully you've got a drink and you're all jazzed to talk about sales and marketing tactics now. My name is Devon Hennig. I worked at Vendasta since 2012, but I lived in Toronto for the past couple of years, so if you don't recognize me, that's why. At Vendasta, I've worn a bunch of different hats. I've been digital strategist, product owner, director of marketing, director of demand gen now. But today I'm here representing my alter ego, I guess. For those who don't know, I'm a writer. I've published 5 books in the past 4 years. And I've seen some pretty decent success with that. Enough success anyway that I've now started teaching a class at the University of Toronto called Selling Your Book, which is what this is going to be based on. Strategies, lifecycle marketing strategies for authors, agents, and publicists. So I guess when a literature-themed Ideas on Tap came up, I thought I'd come into town and try and condense a whole 8-week course into 10 minutes here. So we'll see what happens. See how fast we can get through it. So 5 strategies we're going to call it for becoming a bestseller. Notice the star. So bestseller is a funny word. In Canada, what does that mean? It means if your book sells about 5,000 copies, you can call yourself a bestseller. In the States, it's closer to around 10,000 copies. But that's different from the New York Times bestseller list and different from Amazon bestsellers. However, we won't get into that as much. The other reason I did put a star there is basically because I hope a lot of this stuff applies not just to writers, but for any type of entrepreneur. So musicians, video game developers, artists, I know there are a lot of you hanging out in the audience as well. Whoever basically wants to sell more stuff better, because that's my background. So I can't tell you how to get an agent or a book deal or a grant or anything like that. Like, my projects are published through my own company. 90% of my royalties come from ebooks. 100% of my marketing's online, basically. So that's where I'm coming from. And the good news is that this entire space, just like music, just like apps, has been totally disrupted. Like, you don't need to be traditionally published anymore or have a traditional publisher to be successful. So take this guy. Does anyone know who this is? Anyone recognize this guy? Nobody? All right, this is Joe Konrath, and he's probably one of the reasons that I started down this publishing path. He's a self-published author. He's the author of A Newbie's Guide to Publishing, which I really recommend checking out online. And he's published 40-plus titles, short stories, mystery novels, all that kind of stuff. And he's become this self-pub prophet, and he's a total machine. Like, aside from doing things like 30-day beer diets, which this is real, by the way. He only drank beer and didn't eat for 30 days. Apart from that, doing crap like that, he pumps out books like nobody's business, and he's incredibly candid with his revenue. So these are his sales figures just from his self-published books on Amazon in the past 2 years. That's $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million from self-pub in 2 years. So I can't promise I'll get you guys there in any time in 10 minutes here, but it shows that it's happening, and it's nuts. Like, how is it possible that a relatively non-famous self-published author is seeing success like this? And it comes down to this whole disruption thing, right? It comes back to this disruption thing where it reminds me of the last time I was in West Edmonton Mall. It was Christmas. There was a Kohl's, and the Kohl's was empty. And then you look across the hallway, and it's the Apple store, right? It's so packed you can't get inside. I mean, there's a freaking security guard standing in front of it. When was the last time you needed a security guard in front of a bookstore? That just doesn't happen. I mean, digital is taking over, and we know this, and we preach this at Vendasta, especially with our publisher partners that we have. And even in the book world, where a lot of people still prefer printed books, the ebook market share is pretty significant. So show of hands, who prefers printed books? Who prefers to still read printed books? Okay. Who prefers ebooks? Okay, so a smattering. This chart, and sorry it's impossible to read, reflects something like that. So I'll just tell you what it is because you can't see it. It's basically showing, this first column is the United States, these are all different countries, and it shows what percent of people exclusively read printed books versus exclusively read ebooks or somewhere in between. So in the US, 15% of people say they exclusively read printed books, 4 to 5% say they exclusively read ebooks, but the majority is in this somewhere in between category where they've got this mixture going on. And that's a huge opportunity for people like me in the e-publishing business where there are really, really low barriers to entry. So what makes me qualified to give authors sales advice? I'd say I'm not actually, but D. Melhoff is. And that's like a really lame segue. D. Melhoff is my pen name, and that's a whole other presentation for a whole other day, why I use a pen name and what it means and all that kind of stuff. But feel free to ask me later. So anyhow, as D. Melhoff, I published my first book back in 2013. It was a paranormal, supernatural thriller horror called Come Little Children, about a family of morticians and some creepy things up in the Yukon. And it did pretty well. It was at the top of the Amazon bestseller list for both UK and the US for a little while. And then beyond books for adults, I also write kids books. So there's a series of illustrated books, all holiday-themed stories. There's the Thanksgiving one, Halloween one, Easter one. I've got a Christmas one coming out this year as well. And it's fun. Like, you get weird faces, right, when you say, I write horror and kids books. But it's funny when you crack open one of the books, like even one of these kids books, take the turkey one, for example. It's about turkeys who eat humans for Thanksgiving. So it's dark, too. And I kind of just say I'm horror for all ages, which is what I like to read. So why not write what you like to read, right? These are some other pictures, I guess, from them. They're haunted house stories. I love goblins, crazy evil foxes doing things. So anyways, like, those are some of my projects. If you want to take a closer look at them, I'm actually going to give one away to everyone here if you're interested at the end. So don't leave yet. Thank you. But since this is mostly a marketing presentation, I guess we'll get back to the meat and potatoes of that. So, all right, here we go. Strategies for becoming a bestseller. Number one, I just got to say off the bat, be professional. Like, make sure your product is the best it can be. This is usually just table stakes stuff. Like in my class, I assume all the people that are taking it have a book that is world class, and I don't really dive into that part. But if you're an author, really quickly what this means is basically, have a great cover. Have a solid product description, stuff like that, convey the genre of the book at a glance, have it readable at grayscale, all that good stuff. You also want to have professional editing. That was touched on in previous talks that you guys heard. There's a difference between developmental editing and copy editing and proofreading. I suggest having all of those phases covered if you're ever into this at that level. Don't trust your friend to edit your book or yourself. Get some serious help. But, where friends can become helpful is the beta readers. Like, ask someone you trust to read your book and give them your honest feedback. D is ensure the price is right. This, again, could be another whole talk on its own. Ebooks don't have the same cost associated as traditional publishing printed books. So it's kind of more up in the air what you charge. For a self-published author, I go toward the lower end of the scale because I'm not a well-known name. I can't charge $20 like Stephen King can for a new book because people just frankly don't buy it. I'm more of an impulse purchase, trying to build my brand off the bat right away. And lastly here, I just said volume. The more books you write and publish, the greater your virtual shelf space is going to be. So basically, not every book you write is going to be a bestseller, but the more you write, the better chances you have of hitting home with an audience. Number two tip I want to talk about is knowing your personas. In the author case, this is your ideal reader. So at Vendasta, we talk a lot about personas, right? Like, who's your target market? Who are we selling to? And if you ask the uninitiated writer generally, like, who's who's your book for? I've heard a lot of them say everybody, and that's just BS, right? Like it just takes a quick walk through a bookstore to realize that different people are hanging out in different areas. So take two totally different books, right? Kevin O'Leary's Cold Hard Truth versus Andrew Piper's Demonologist. Like, who are the different ideal readers for these books, right? Well, you know, you got Kevin O'Leary, probably business people, entrepreneurs, angel investors, fans of Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, shows like that. The Demonologist, probably Paradise Lost enthusiasts. There's a lot of Dante in there, people looking for the next Dan Brown, like totally different books. So that's obvious. But what if you whittle it down even more? What if all of a sudden you're looking at maybe Kevin O'Leary's book versus Arlene Dickinson's book? What are the differences in ideal readers at that point? So, I mean, you could maybe say Kevin's book now, men probably seeking personal investment advice, finance advice. They might identify more with his philosophies, you know, the cutthroat, confident, cocky boardroom guy. Arlene, typically more seeking network and negotiation strategies. Her philosophy is more philanthropic, aspiring to break the glass ceiling, all that kind of thing. And you can keep going. You get more and more specific. What about Arlene versus Ivanka Trump now? And you have to get to that level where you know your exact reader and what they're looking for. Because the richer your insights into these personas, the more that's going to help form your market messages going forward. So number 3, next, I'm going to say inbound marketing is your friend, and only if you do your research, though. So inbound marketing, you've all heard us, at least the Vendastians, preach about this on and on and on. But for those who don't know what it is, here's the quick 411, I guess. Basically, people's buying behaviors have completely changed. They're tuning out traditional marketing unlike ever before. We're not listening as much to all the blasted advertisements that used to happen. So basically, the old marketing playbook's broken. Almost everybody skips TV ads now. There's high unsubscribe rates from emails. Direct mail's never open. Like, all that stuff that used to work just doesn't. So in order to track customers, you need to provide them with things that resonate, helpful content that they'll love and hopefully share. So inbound marketing is about content. It's about building blogs and interesting pieces for your website, presentations, ebooks, guides, anything that will attract someone that might be interested in the topic that you're covering. So that topic and context is extremely, extremely important. You need to publish the right content at the right place, the right time to be relevant and helpful. And again, yeah, at Vendasta, we do this all the time. We spend a lot of time building a lot of really helpful things for our partners, whether that's, you know, free tools for digital marketer guides, agency survival guides, an ultimate guide to the online reviews. This is a whole team that we have in the building doing this on a constant basis. But it's kind of overwhelming. It's like, where do I start if I'm just going to do this for the first time? And I'd say start with what your personas are searching. So if you don't, it's kind of like another phrase that we have. It's like building a billboard in the middle of nowhere. You could have the greatest content in the world, but if it's not what people are actually looking for, it's not going to matter because it's never going to be found, and it'll never drive traffic for you or new readership or anything like that. So let's talk about a real example that I'm super excited for. This is my next book that's coming out this winter. I've been saying that forever, but I promise I'm serious this time. It's actually coming out. So Grimwoods. A remote summer camp becomes a lurid crime scene when the bodies of 2 teenagers are found in a bloody real-life rendering of a classic Grimm's fairy tale. So it's basically Friday the 13th meets Grimm's fairy tales with a bit of the movie Seven thrown in. And okay, so let's just go through the checklist that I've built so far. So number 1, you know, be professional. Hopefully that's taken care of. Got a nice looking cover. It's been edited 3 times. It's gone through 2 beta readers. Likely it's good to go. Next up would be research then. So how do I know how to position this darn thing, and what kind of content can I build that's going to help out my inbound marketing to attract new readers? So the first stop for me is going to be keyword research. Again, this should apply to anybody, not just authors, but if you're trying to sell something online, please start with keyword research. You can use Keyword Planner tool that's in Google AdWords to do a lot of this. It's by far the most popular keyword tool out there. And if you have an AdWords account, you're good to go. If not, you can sign up for a free one. And that's going to give you a bunch of keyword ideas of what people are searching for on a monthly basis. It's even going to give you their search volume. So what is going on out there and what are people actually Googling any day? Beyond Keyword Planner, there are a ton of tools you can use to get more keyword ideas. These are just some of them: Ubersuggest, SEMrush, Keyword Tool. And it's essentially doing what a Google autofill does. It's populating popular terms that people are searching for, right? So the big goal with all of this is to wind up with a huge honkin' list of keywords that you can focus all your content on. So, am I frozen here? Nope, all good. If stuff like this doesn't get you excited, like, I don't know what would. So I'm a nerd. But seriously, okay, look at all this traffic, right? There are 673,000 searches a month for Grimm. There are 246,000 searches a month for fairy tales, and it goes on, and it's more targeted the further down this list you go. So now we're cooking with gas. Now we're getting somewhere. We know what people are searching for. Then you can go deeper and start building these things into topics. So all of a sudden, when you look at all this raw data stuff, themes start to come up, right? Original fairy tales, fairy tale characters, dark fairy tales. That would be a good one to build some content around for me. So you start building this roadmap of content that you want, right? And for my book launch, I've already started creating content around these themes. Again, the core strategy here is to build stuff that's going to bring people to your website or draw attention to your book that you can then take one step further and sell to once you've got their attention and their interest, and you know that they're into this kind of thing in the first place. So here are some examples of just content ideas that you would then use. Build an ultimate guide to Brothers Grimm, build an ultimate guide to English fairy tales or something. That's all free that you can start building your email list with and then market to afterward. And all of that, all of what I just described at a very high level look is life cycle marketing. And it's from the very first part of the spectrum, attracting traffic with the helpful inbound marketing content. It's capturing leads, we would call them here, I guess, capturing potential readers with pieces of content that they're interested in and building your list. If they're not ready to buy your book, then it's about email campaigns and trying to nurture them along the way. And then finally, hopefully they do buy your book and they leave a nice review and tell all their friends, and you get more referrals. So coming to the reviews part, I guess there are just two more other quick points I wanted to make. Reviews definitely are important. Everyone here knows that as well. I mean, the book world is no exception. So does anyone know, this is specifically for Amazon, the difference between a 4.7 star rating and a 4.3 star rating? Okay, clever. Okay, but 0.4 stars might not sound like much or like a huge difference, but a 0.4 star difference on Amazon boosts a product from the 54th percentile to the 94th percentile in terms of sales. So it is a sharp increase that you're going to get. This isn't just for Amazon. I mean, there are other places authors should consider to have reviews. Goodreads is probably the most important of all of them, along with Amazon. So you can do other things like have Goodreads giveaways, anything that you can do to build those reviews, because those, again, are an essential part of that initial online presence. Reviews, by the way, make by and large the best social content, especially for promoting with Facebook ads. I've found if I've ever wanted to give a boost to my sales, if I notice something's going on and I just want to amplify that, I will turn the tap on with my book review posts, because they just generate a lot of chatter and direct kind of like third-party affirmation that this is a decent book that someone's going to trust and buy. Lastly, before we get out of here, I just wanted to talk about how important the halo effect is. So at the start, I mentioned that I had the #1 book on Amazon for a little while, but it did not start out that way. So I just randomly noticed one day, and this was a complete stumble, that that this book was number 75 on Amazon UK website in this subsection of horror, whatever. I had no idea why. the Brits were suddenly reading this, but God bless them. And I thought 75's good, but we can do better. So that came into, turning on a bit of the social advertising, promoting the reviews, and boosting the book even higher on the bestseller list. So that's kind of what I mean by halo effect, is generally what happens if you notice something's going well and going and has the potential to do better. Bestseller lists are great for that. So if you are starting to climb it, promote it more, get it higher up the list, and naturally what happens is you get more exposure just from the list itself, just because people follow lists like this, and it's a cumulative kind of compounding effect of what you notice. So my advice there, if possible, is just coordinate your launches, save up a little war chest if you can to help out situations like this, because overall, I mean, advertising just isn't sustainable. For guys like me, where I'm selling a 99-cent or $2.99 ebook, and the margin is just crazy compared to what you're going to pay for advertising. So that's why I have chose to focus on all of the inbound marketing that I talked about previously. So here's a quick recap, I guess, of what I covered. I knew it flew by really quickly, but I had 10 minutes to put all this 8-hour course in, so c'est la vie, but recap can't hurt. Marketing checklist, I guess. Be professional, have a good cover, solid manuscript, right price point. Know your ideal reader, how you're going to build all that content for them. Conduct the keyword research with some of those tools that I had mentioned. They're really, really handy. There's an entire course you can actually take that shows how to put it all together, which if you're interested, let me know. And then plot out every phase of your lifecycle marketing plan, which includes, the reviews and all this planning for this halo effect that you might want to get to build in the best case scenario, I suppose. So good luck marketing, everyone. I know it's not easy, but if you are interested as an author, please actually come talk to me after this, whether you want to self-publish or you want to be more traditional. I've got kind of, if I don't have something for the traditional side, I've got friends that I can kind of point you in the direction of, and hopefully, you can turn that sort of dream into more of a reality. And I guess even if you don't, and even if you follow all these steps and sales still sucks or whatever, or this one project doesn't turn out, I'd say don't be discouraged. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, I'm going to end with this, is from the man himself, Stephen King. Says, if you wrote something for which someone just sent you a check, if you cashed the check and it didn't bounce, and if you then paid the light bill with the money, I consider you talented. So thank you, everyone. Before we go, I did promise the giveaway. So unfortunately, I don't have my physical books here, but I sell mostly ebook anyway. So if anyone is interested in a free ebook in exchange for hopefully a review, what you can do is email this email with just what preferred e-reader version you want and one of those numbers, and I'll get that to you. I was going to set up a form, but I just was too last minute, honest to God. So this Grimwoods isn't out yet, but as soon as it is, I'll shoot it over to you. And the other two I can get over this weekend. So there we go. Any questions? Woo. Thank you.